You know, when we talk about AI art, our eyes are usually glued to the final image, right? The flashy, creative output. But today, we're going to pull back the curtain on something totally different. We're not just looking at the art, we're looking at the factory that makes it. A super rigorous, completely auditable system where, honestly, the rules are just as important as the results. So let's dive in and see how this thing actually works.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to walk through 5 main stages. We'll start with how a simple news headline kicks the whole thing off. Then, we'll follow it into this complex automated pipeline. We'll watch it run a gauntlet of rules and checks. After that, we'll see it forged into a real physical book. And finally, we'll talk about why this incredibly disciplined approach to AI really matters. So, where does a process this complex even begin? You might think it starts with some big, creative brief from a marketing team or an artist's wild idea, but nope. It starts with something way more ordinary, something you might see every day. It starts with this, a real headline from a real, trusted local newspaper. This is the spark. It's just a simple, civic story about an everyday person doing something good. And this is the raw material the system is designed to find and transform.
Okay, but here's the first big twist. Inside the Corkman system, this headline gets completely reframed. The system doesn't see a story here, not in the way you and I do. It sees data. It is, quite literally, an input, ready to trigger a very sophisticated machine. So how does that work? Well, it's all about something called trigger logic. Think of it like a digital watchman, constantly scanning a list of approved news sources. The moment it spots a key phrase, like Corkman, bam! The whole process kicks off. It immediately anonymizes any personal details and, crucially, logs exactly where that headline came from, creating the first entry in a perfect audit trail.
Once that trigger is pulled, the headline enters what's called the automation spine. The best way to picture this is as a meticulously organized assembly line, but instead of building cars, it's building governed media, one step at a time.
And here's that assembly line in action. First, the headline gets broken down, or parsed. Then an archetype is chosen for the story. Next up, text and images are generated. But, and this is key, before anything sees the light of day, it has to pass certification to be cleared for publishing. It's a very clear, linear, predictable path.
Okay, hold on. Before we go any deeper into what the system does, we have to talk about how it does it. And this is absolutely fundamental. Before any creative work even begins, every single run gets its own unique ID. That ID is tied to a tamper-proof folder called an evidence pack, which will hold every single thing, every input, every decision, every rule that was checked, and every output that was generated.
This all comes down to a core principle they call the evidence-first guarantee. I mean, this is non-negotiable. Every single action has to be recorded and has to be verifiable. If a complete audit trail and evidence pack can't be produced for any reason, then from the system's point of view, the run officially did not happen. Boof, it's gone. There are no black boxes here. Every single step is designed to be traceable.
So with that foundation of evidence locked in, we can crack open that black box. We're now entering the part of the assembly line where every single piece of content has to face a series of intense checks and balances. Welcome to the governance gauntlet.
And here's what's so different about this system. Governance isn't something they just tack on at the end. Nope, it's the very first hurdle. A policy chain, basically a series of automated rules, checks the input against a strict list. Is it true to the brand's canon? Does it look authentic? Does it contain anything that's prohibited? Only if it passes all these checks can the creative generation even begin.
So here's the logic in its simplest form. When a request comes in, the system asks a really simple question. Did we trip a wire? Did a guardrail fire? In other words, did we break a rule? If the answer is yes, it doesn't just crash. It automatically escalates the issue to a human for review. But of course, it's not always that simple, is it? As you can see from this matrix, it's way more sophisticated. Different problems get routed to different human experts. So if there's a whiff of bias, it goes to one team. If the system just has low confidence in its own output, it goes to another. And every single escalation has a specific owner, a required action, and a deadline. It's incredibly organized. And this whole process has a name you've probably heard before, Human in the Loop, or HITL. Think of it as a mandatory timeout. The automation pauses, and a person has to step in and make a judgment call. Nothing, and I mean nothing, gets finalized without either a clean, fully automated pass or a documented sign-off from one of these human reviewers.
Now, this is a really clever and kind of unique feature. Instead of just stopping dead in its tracks when it finds a problem, the system can flag but produce. It means it'll still go ahead and generate the content, but it will attach a very clear warning flag to it. This is huge, because it means you don't get these weird gaps in the record where something just vanished. Everything is accounted for.
All right, so let's say a piece of content makes it all the way through the automation spine and survives the governance gauntlet. It's been checked, double-checked, and approved. What happens next? Well, it doesn't just get posted online, it gets forged into something physical, something permanent.
And this right here, this is the blueprint. It's the architecture for the physical book, what's known as the flat plan. And just look at this thing. Every single section, from the front matter to the card blocks in the back, has a locked page range. The status is locked, nothing moves. This structure is completely non-negotiable.
There's a quote from the creators that just nails this whole idea. Structure never changes. Content rotates within it. The container, the book's layout, its sections, the page numbers, is fixed. The AI-generated content, all those stories and images, is what gets refreshed and rotates inside that fixed shell year after year.
And this isn't just a suggestion, it's a hard rule called the annualization rule. It's a promise that the next edition will have the exact same structure as the last one. And why do this? Well, it makes the whole thing repeatable and scalable. You can update the content forever without ever having to go back and redesign the product itself.
And to top it all off, after all of that high-tech automation, all of that digital governance and processing, the final product is always, and I mean always, printed in Cork. It brings this incredibly complex digital process right back to a tangible, local, physical outcome.
Okay, so we've followed the entire journey, from a simple headline all the way to a printed book sitting on a shelf. Let's take a step back and ask the big question. Why does any of this matter? Why would anyone go to all this trouble to build an AI system this way?
Well, it all boils down to these core ideas, these guiding principles we've just seen in action. Evidence first, execution. Prove everything. Policy before generation. Rules come first. Human in the loop. People have the final say. Every output is deterministic and replayable. The system is designed for restraint, not for pushing boundaries. And the end result is an immutable, physical thing. This isn't just about making cool art. It's a powerful case study in responsible automation.
Which leaves us with one last, big question to think about. In this new world of endless, often chaotic AI content, is the most important thing being created here the art itself, or is it the trustworthy, transparent system of rules that governs it?